Hi, my name is Dean Sickler and I work with Golden Paintworks. Today I'd like to demonstrate the application of Golden Paintworks metallic paint finish over a broad area surface like the wall in an average home. I'd like to show you how to achieve this finish without the unsightly lines, stripes, blemishes, and other problems that are common with the application of metallic paints. Now, before I get started, let me encourage you to watch some of our other videos on metallic paint application so you can see the range of options you may have and possibly different strategies you could use to achieve a fine finish. So that being said, let me go over some of the tools we're going to use. Now, the common way to paint out a room is to use a brush to cut in around the ceiling line, corners, up against the millwork and that, and then to use a roller to fill in all the broad area work. Now, the problem with that is when you use a brush to brush out metallic paint, it leaves a different type of reflective surface than the roller, which is more like a stipple. Okay? So what happens is what painters call hat band a room. It's quite noticeable. Instead, what you want to use is a small roller. This is a 4-inch roller, and we're going to use this right up against the ceiling lines. Why you want to make sure you burnish down that tape really well all the way around. Use it right up against the ceiling like this, and in the corners same way, and against all the millwork. Now, here's the thing. You have a roller for the cutting in and a roller for the broad area work. They have to be made out of the same material and have the same size nap. In that case, these are both 1/2-inch nap rollers. They're both made out of the same type of microfiber. Different type also is another one here. Here's a superfab roller. These are synthetic lamb's wool, and they are both 1/2-inch rollers. This is a 9-inch, this is a 4-inch. These will work fine also. So just make sure both these tools here match each other. I'm ready to go now. The walls have been primed and painted in a color that's very similar to my final metallic paint color. The walls have been well sealed. Any spackle marks or plaster marks have been primed and then painted over. As you can see, the reason why we don't cut in first and then roll is, let me show you. When you roll and cut in, you have two different looks completely. The brush marks always look completely different than the rolled on paint, so you're going to see a remarkable difference. That's why you always want to use the same type of tool to cut in also. And it's also why you want to make sure you really burnish down the edges of the tape, because you're going to push this roller right up to the top. Okay, top and bottom. I come out about 30 inches or so to 3 feet. Takes the roller a couple of loads before it gets nice and primed, but now it's ready to go. Okay. Now, it's not so important on the first coat, but on the final coat, what happens is the mica pigments, they lay off in the direction that you roll them. So if you go down, they lay off this way. When you roll up, they lay off that way. So you want to make sure on your final stroke, after you put down about 30 inches like this, start at the top and roll all the way down to the bottom with very gentle pressure. This will lay all the mica pigments off in the same direction. It's too difficult to go up and down the ladder all the time and cut in. You can go ahead and use the small roller and cut in around the entire room against the ceiling, against the base, and in the corners. Let that dry, and then come through with the large roller here and lay down the broad area work. That works just as well. Sometimes you can see it very slightly, but it's hardly noticeable. Okay, now we'll let this dry for about 4 to 6 hours. Okay, now I'm ready to put on the second coat. Now I finished the first coat after the midpoint of the day yesterday, and I want to give it at least 6 hours drying time. So I let it dry overnight to make sure we have a good cure. Okay, now before the final coat, you want to make sure that you address any problems you might see on the wall. Anytime you change the sheen level of a wall surface, your little imperfections are going to pop out that you didn't see before because of the shininess of the wall. You can take a sanding block and address any little problems you might see. If you fill a hole with spackle, make sure you give it 2 coats of the paint before you do the final coat. That'll give you a nice unblemished surface. So we're ready to go. I'm using the same tools I used yesterday. I just wrapped them in plastic overnight. So you want to cut in first with the small roller. Again, you can cut in the entire room first, ceiling, base, and corners and around switch plates first with this roller. Let it dry for a few hours and then put on the final coat. Or you can do this as you're going along. Again, in about 30-inch strips. Now, this is the final coat, so you want to make sure you cover this 100% and then lay off the pigment. I'm using very little pressure. Okay. Now here's an important thing to know. As the paint starts to dry over here, it's going to start to look kind of blotchy. Now you have to resist the temptation to go back in there with the roller and touch it up. You will leave a stripe if you do that. So once you're finished with it, leave it alone and it'll dry out very nicely. So I'll continue on. Okay, now that's finished. Again, as you can see, the wall's looking kind of blotchy as it starts to dry. Again, resist the temptation to touch it up. Okay, so I'll come back when this is completely dry. Okay, it's the next day and the paint is dried. You see, it has dried in a nice uniform manner across both surfaces, and we've achieved what we wanted. Now, sometimes achieving a uniform coat is quite difficult. Maybe the ceilings are 12 feet high, and there's not enough time to get up and down that ladder and apply the paint and keep a wet edge across the whole broad area. Or maybe you have a large open ceiling. In another video, we'll show you how to apply metallic paint. That does leave a bit of visual texture, but it's a very forgiving finish and much easier to apply. So stay tuned and thanks for watching.